Conflict is inevitable. The question isn't whether you're going to disagree with people, it's what kind of person you become when you do. Today in the podcast, we're talking about confrontation, unity, and when you should actually call somebody out, and even some of the ways Christians use phrases like God told me, or I don't have peace about it, to avoid saying what they really mean. And maybe the hardest question of all, why do we always assume the worst about each other?
We're back, dude.
We are back.
It's been a minute.
For the video watchers,
We're back.
You're seeing us back on your screen, but man, it looks a lot different.
It does. The walls behind is not the grass, the fake foliage.
It's gone. That was an era.
The faux foliage.
But that era has
come to an end.
The faux grass era has come to an end.
We're now in a not yet completed.
Not yet complete. Yeah, so we're going to make sure from the top to say this because our executive pastor will be very upset with me if I don't. But this space that we're sitting in right now, we're not quite complete yet. There's still work to be done. There's some painting and some different things. So it is not complete. But even still, it not being complete, it still looks great.
I think so.
And we're stepping into a new era.
Yes.
Here for the If I Had More Time podcast.
Come on now.
And so, man, we want to say welcome back.
Yeah.
It has been a while. I looked it up. Last night. I think the last episode was, was it June?
Dang, dude.
It was the end. It was basically, it's been 2 months. It was like the last Monday of June.
Wow.
So we know we said on that episode we were coming back earlier in kind of rhythm fashion. We bite off more than we can chew, and then things take longer, and we're still not complete.
Always punching out of our weight class.
But we're back.
Yep.
I think this is officially season 3.
Okay.
And believing this will be the best season yet.
Are we season 2 or season 3?
Well, on the episodes, I did change it from season 2 when we went to Joshua.
Oh, okay.
So Joshua 2 was a new season.
Okay, so season 2. Now we're into season 3.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So,
wow.
But hey, once you guys know, you guys have seen. There's a new intro. Everything. I don't think you've even seen the new intro.
I haven't seen the new intro. I've seen like the full. I've seen like the little animated thing.
So we're getting the whole jam. We're rocking. And there's new formats, some new formats to this podcast that we'll kind of unveil as we go. Some new things we're doing. But, man, I will tell you, we've missed this. It's been a few months.
Same.
I've met people. I met a woman 2 weeks ago now. Really, really sweet young lady. She came up to me during service and was just like, "Hey, like I want you to know." I'm kind of newer. I found the podcast.
Yeah.
I found this podcast and listening to you guys. I'm basically catching up from episode 1.
No way.
And, excited for it to come back. And I was like, no way, and so.
That's crazy,
we know we still have some people who are still tuning in, listening, catching up, or, watching and jumping into the new jam.
That's crazy.
We're ready to rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
Also, making an acknowledgement, another thing we did change is we are now dropping on Mondays.
Yes,
instead of Tuesdays.
Yep.
Why don't you expand on why we made that decision?
I heard from some of our rhythm group like leaders and whatnot that they were listening to it and they like loved being able to go into their groups with a little bit more like from the message, and it just was helping them in different ways. But then we also heard from people that they had wished because they led on Mondays that they wished that we would release it on Mondays so that they could do that for their groups because they would listen to it and be like, oh, we kind of talked about that at our group and I wish that we would have had more context for it. And so, and part of also why we do this isn't just to do a podcast. It's like, well, everyone does a podcast. We need one too. But it really is for that discipleship purpose of helping people grow in their faith. And if getting it out on Mondays is going to help the group leaders and anyone else that's going to go to a group throughout the week have a little bit more in their minds and in their hearts to talk about, then that's what we're going to do. We're going to help disciple people.
Yeah. So we apologize if we've messed up your Tuesday rhythm.
You can still watch it on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, you still can watch it on Tuesday. That's right.
Yeah.
But maybe we get added to your Monday morning rhythm or Monday afternoon rhythm instead. Yeah. But hey, we're gonna jump back into it. We're still doing the thing.
Let's do it.
For those of you who are new to the podcast, just so you guys have a premise of what this podcast is. If I had more time, the point of this episode of this podcast is that we have created this, like you said, as a discipleship tool.
Yeah.
But as you teach, and different people come in and teach, we use this as a tool for people who want to dive more into the sermon, and for you to be able to share and give different insights into the message, things that you had to cut for time.
Exactly.
Because, we have a 35 minutes.
A lot of times it goes
40-ish minutes. Framework on the weekends, and that's just oftentimes not enough for you to share all the things. So. Yeah.
To get it all out.
We're ready to rock and roll.
Let's
Before we
go.
jump in,
Okay.
I have one question for you.
Okay.
Are you naturally a confrontational person?
Ooh.
Or or more of a avoid it until it goes away type person?
I'm in the middle.
Okay.
So I'm not quick to confront, and because I want to see. Sometimes it's not because I necessarily don't want to, but it's like, is this in need of confrontation? So I might let things go a little bit longer, and sometimes probably longer than they should, but then I will jump in and we're going to talk about it for sure. I think that, like it's hard as someone who leads people and also is led, by like overseers and other pastors in my life. And then also being a husband, being a dad for a time, like, it's like, man, when do you jump in?
Yeah.
I mean, when do you say something? Because if you're quick on everything, then I don't think everything needs to be addressed always, because it could be a quick mistake, or and then I don't know. What about you?
I feel I'm not naturally a confrontational person, but I have felt like whether it's because of leadership, but then also I think because of kids.
Yeah.
I have become a much more. It sounds weird, but confrontational. I just think my patience for things to drag out longer has become shorter. So I think now it's just like a different expectation.
Sure.
And so I'm just much more like, hey, like that needs to stop.
Yeah.
But I'm not naturally like that. That's not. I'm not like my dad is like a very.
He's quick.
Oh man, like it was like, hey, I've said this once.
Yeah.
Don't make me say it again. That's not like how I'm naturally wired.
Right.
You know, like I saw that always growing up, and I was like, man, I don't know. It's kind of But now I don't know. Now I'm like, but now you get older, I'm like, oh, I kind of get it. It's like let this drag on. So but I wouldn't say in my naturally wired state I am confront it right away. But I will tell you, it does get things done quicker.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay.
Interesting.
The more like a feedback. There's like a feedback loop there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of like, I confronted that quicker. I didn't have to worry about it, and it got done. I actually like that more than waiting it out. Yeah. So
Okay.
Cool. Well, hey, we're gonna jump back in. We for the summer we were you were gone for a bit and different stuff, and so we're jumping all over the text, but we're back in Joshua.
Yeah.
Where we left off.
Yep.
Joshua 22.
22.
One of the things we are going to make a change to our podcast going forward is we're going to do a little bit more reading. And we understand that sometimes people might be watching the sermon later or whatever. They're jumping to the podcast maybe even without having watched the full sermon yet. We really encourage you. This is meant to be paired alongside with our Sunday message.
Sure.
So we encourage you to watch Sunday message, and I think you'll get the most out of this podcast if and when you do that. We also know that some people are doing that out of order. So for these podcasts going forward, we're going to do a little bit more reading at the top of the text that we're covering, and so people have context. So
for sure.
Joshua 22, we had a lot. It was a lot of text.
There's a lot of text. Yeah. We won't read all of it. I'll summarize some of it, but basically, like I summarized in the message the beginning where Joshua is just basically he's sending the 2.5 tribes, Gad, Reuben, and half tribe of Manasseh, back over to the east to now settle in their land, which was I wanted to get into that, but I didn't, and maybe we can a little bit later. And so I just kind of jumped into like the main crux of the chapter, though, is this confrontation between the eastern tribes and the western tribes. And so it says in verse 9, so the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh left the Israelites at Shiloh and Canaan to return to Gilead, their own land, which they had acquired in accordance with the command of the Lord through Moses. So they had made a deal to stay on that side of the river. I believe it was best for their livestock, etc., to like grazing land, so on and so forth. And then it says when they came to Gilaloth, I hate some of these Old Testament names, dude. But you just say it fast enough, and people just think you know what you're talking about. So when they came to Gilith,
Accent.
Gilith, near the Jordan in the land of Canaan, the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh built an imposing altar there by the Jordan. Now, the word imposing there just really means big. It wasn't like they were building something that was supposed to be mean, or imposing or whatnot. And when the Israelites heard that they had built the altar on the border of Canaan at Gilith, near the Jordan on the Israelite side, the whole assembly of Israel gathered at Shiloh to go to war against them. And then basically what takes place after that is they send a delegation. It's Phinehas, who is a priest, and then 10 of the basically heads of those tribes. And they go and they confront. They say, this is why, hey, if you're doing this out of rebellion, the Lord's going to not just wreck you guys, he's going to wreck us all, because we're one people here. And then the Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, they respond with, hey, we're not building this altar to make sacrifices. We're not trying to set up another religion or any of that. We're basically doing this as a remembrance, so that between us and you, years from now, we'll be able to point to something that says, no, even though we live on separate sides of the river, we are still one people. Yeah. And we want the Reubenites, get that, the 2.5 tribes, they go, we want our kids to follow and fear the Lord. And we're afraid if we don't do this, then there's going to be a way to separate. And Phinehas and the 10 basically elders, they go, okay, cool. We're glad. It makes us happy. And they go back, they tell the rest of Israel, they're stoked. And then they name the altar at the very end of the chapter. The Reubenites, Gadites gave the altar the name, A Witness Between Us, that the Lord is God. So that's the summation of the chapter. And that's where we got into just the whole idea of how do you deal with conflict in relationships. Yeah. Especially this one in particular, it's not conflict between them and the world. It's like family business. It's conflict almost like you have in the church, or conflict you would have in your household, know? Yeah. So that's kind of the premise that we ran with. Yeah.
That's good. What kind of one of our main questions we asked, but what are some of the things that you feel like you wanted to get into, rabbit trails?
Man, well, I did want to get into the very beginning, where in Joshua 22, I'll circle back to it in Joshua 23, but in Joshua 22, in the very beginning, as he's sending them back over, he commends them for helping, for coming over and fighting for their brothers and sisters, basically, right? And he goes, for a long time now, to this very day, you have not deserted your fellow Israelites, but have carried out the mission the Lord God gave you. And then he says, be very careful in verse 5 to keep the commandment and the law that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you. Love the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to him, keep his commands, and hold fast and serve him with all of your heart and soul. Now, we're going to circle back to that, because Joshua also says this in chapter 23, and he says it in chapter 24. And so I'll hold off on that. Yeah. But what I do love is he says, and he blessed them. And in verse 8, he says, saying, return to your homes with your great wealth, with large herds of livestock, with silver, gold, bronze, and iron, and a great quantity of clothing. And then he says, and divide the plunder from your enemies with your fellow Israelites. So in other words, when he's saying you're going back there, you don't keep all this stuff, because the people that were keeping your land on the east, which is basically your wives and children, etc., that weren't of fighting age, you don't go back and go, this is all mine. You go back and go, hey, you took care of this stuff here, so we're going to share that with you. And I really wanted to get into that whole idea of we each play our part within community. Yeah. And some may be on the front lines fighting, and that looks like the most important job. And it might be, but there's also the important job of making sure that home is taken care of. For sure. And you share in that, and that stuff is radically important. And so I wanted to get into that, but didn't. Sure. But I do feel like it kind of fit into the whole idea of, man, this is the whole family type thing. I did want to chase a little bit because we took communion on the end of how the second altar is kind of similar to communion. I did a little bit, and I didn't want to go down that too much because it's not necessarily like something like a theological hill that I would die on and whatnot, but just the symbolism of they build an altar that is very similar to the one at Shiloh. Mm-hmm. It's like a replica. That's again why they think they were going to sacrifice on it. But they were doing it as a remembrance. And so if we go, okay, Jesus is the ultimate lamb sacrificed, right? No, not necessarily on an altar, but he was sacrificed. And we take communion, which is it resembles his body and his blood, right? It's like they had when we do this to remember, so that in the future, like for sure, we understand that there's something greater and that we're still connected to the people of God for the altar, and very similar. I don't know if I'm making any sense right now, but like it just, the connection there was like, it's pretty interesting that you see throughout Scripture that there are physical things that represent spiritual things in order to keep it in front of us.
Yeah.
So we take communion to remember that Jesus is coming back. We take communion to remember, his body was broken for us. This blood is given for the forgiveness of our sins. And that was based off of, again, the Last Supper, and which was the Passover feast. So I just like to build that altar for me was very, like, for them it was very interesting. Now for me to look at that and go, man, that was set up physically so that they would remember for generations to come what it's about. And taking communion, very much the same. And then that begs the question for me, what are things in my life that I can actually set up that are a continuance of remembrance, of what Jesus has done in my life?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally does.
Anyways, that was my thought.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, like kind of so it seems like from a overall, like premise here, like Israel basically almost enters this civil war.
Yeah, it's almost a civil war
over something that neither side actually understood. Like a lot of assumptions, about the other side and whatnot.
Radical assumptions, yeah.
Right, and so from that, in the sermon, you talk about how we then something we can glean from that is like how we then as Christians, how we as believers on this side of the new covenant, like how we can handle conflict biblically, right, and not fall into some of the same kind of patterns here we see in Joshua 22. But one thing I found interesting is, afterwards is like they were willing to go to war over assumptions about one another. And that feels pretty pertinent to where we're at. As a culture, society. Even like, you could say that very easily from like a Christian to non-Christian kind of like ethos, but even sometimes within the church.
Oh, for sure.
We have how quickly are we, and not to get into the whole, history of church splits or, denominations, and I think that's a whole different conversation for a different day, but how often do we split a church or we'll draw lines, from a denominational standpoint over, and some of it, I understand there are important theological differences that different groups have, but sometimes this will make assumptions about one another or make generalizations about this group of people just based off of what tribe they come from.
Oh, for sure.
And I just find that so there's so many parallels within this story of how they interact to how we interact today.
How we interact with different. We could say tribes. Denominationally, movement wise, all of that. And I think that's, again, important, even like within the church, to seek that clarification then of like, what do you really believe? Okay. And is that in some way, shape, or form sinful, or is it going to hurt or whatnot? There are some things biblically and theologically that comes from the Bible that we have to say in certain movements, that's not right.
Totally.
And call that out. But I think too often in the church, we're fighting each other as opposed to fighting the enemy. I think what the world is seeing with the church is more of a divided front as opposed to United Front
Right.
and things, and they've done things like they used to do like unity services, where two churches would get together that were from different, like the Methodists and the Lutheran would get together, Lutherans. And that's why I love that A.W. Tozer quote is like, ultimately, I don't like those unity services are cool, whatever. But what matters is are we serving in the Lord? Are we seeking the Lord?
Right.
Because that's the ultimate. But I think even down even to more like a smaller level would be like just within the church. Like we've had people leave our church because they assumed something about someone in leadership or whatnot, and so they left. Like we've had people leave our church because Aaron looked at them a certain way.
Yeah.
And they assumed that they were like, she was mad at them or
Right.
was being mean or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We've had people leave our church because same thing with me. Like I walked past them and I didn't say hi.
Yeah.
And they assumed that I was being like, when I was just, maybe an ADD moment or whatever it was.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Or I've had, in the other beautiful things, I've had people come up to me after a message and ask for clarification on something I said because they assumed I meant something that I didn't.
For sure. That's good.
So, I mean, those are all like, assumptions wreck people when they don't confront them or when they don't talk about them or they don't ask about them, when they don't investigate them.
What I find interesting is that because I'm big on words and definitions, and I think what often happens is we seem to confuse the word unity with like conformity, and so it's like uniformity, and it's like
Uniformity, yeah.
like there is a difference in we're unified, we're not agreed on everything, but we're unified, and what we've seen, especially nowadays. I mean, I think this has always happened again because there's different denominations and that's different backgrounds. But it does seem that nowadays there is so much of like, if you're not in complete uniformity with me, I can't be in unity with you.
Yeah.
And I love that you talked about that quote from A.W. Tozer, and you speak at this right before you went to that quote. But you talked about how they were already unified because they were
already unified in the spirit,
because like God is what unifies us, right? And so what unifies us isn't practice or culture or style or preference.
Sure,
it's Christ. And so you can, if there are different denominations or movements or tribes that I really don't agree with how they do certain things or style or preference or whatever. But you can still be in unity with them if your central thing and what you from it's Jesus. There's a authority of Scripture, and we're all on the same page there. But I can still go, I'm unified with them, but we're not in there's not uniformity in like again how they operate or certain things like that. And I think what's happened is so much today is like, well, if we're not all on the same page about this, that, and the other, and this, that, and then we'll break, we'll break communion or we'll break relationship with people.
Yeah,
and like you said, then we get to a point where we end up fighting each other more so than fighting the enemy.
Yeah,
which is where we should be. And then what's interesting too on the flip side of that is like there has become such a drive for this partnership or this where we're and realizing that. Again, I can look at someone and go, we're just not on the same page about stuff, but I really want the best for you.
Yeah.
We'll probably never necessarily maybe have a unity service.
Right. Exactly.
But I'm not rooting against you.
Right.
Like I want to see the best for you. I'm praying for you. I believe where God's called me in our ministry or wherever God, like it's going to be over here.
Yeah.
Maybe God has you over there. It's a different, look and vibe, whatever the case is. But, it doesn't necessarily mean that all of a sudden too that like there's like this again we're just not on the same page about certain things, and that's okay. And so I just it's so interesting now that how that practically plays out amongst people, and I do think there is a difference between the two. But like you said, if we're all tuned to the same fork, like or tuned to the same, we're all tuned to the same pitch, the same pitching fork. Like that's where we're gonna get that. Like it's not from, oh, well, you dress a certain way, or you like a certain type of music, or you guys do baptism this way and we don't. And it's like, okay, we're arguing about things that we're trying to tune ourselves to things that ultimately
No,
I'm not saying they don't matter,
Yeah.
but they're not what we should be tuned to.
Right.
You know,
like there's the Saint Augustine or Augustine or however you want to pronounce his name, right? It says, it's like in essentials, there's unity. Like there's essential things to
Right.
our faith that we have to be unified on.
100%.
Like, virgin birth, the resurrection of Christ, all these things, right? He's the only way. And then there's non-essential things, right? That are kind of like are arguable. You can maybe, teach them one of two ways, with it from scripture. And in those, there's and he says in non-essentials, liberty. And then he says, but in all things, charity.
That's right.
So it's like we want to be graceful in a lot of things with people, but it is, we don't always have to be on. And that's the thing too. I think even within trying to find a church, I don't know if you're gonna find a church that you completely agree with everything on.
Right.
And understanding, that there is stylistic preferences. That doesn't mean that it's biblical.
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't mean they're doing it wrong.
Right.
There is like in the non-essentials, there's some variance there, and you might not always agree with how that church handles something in those non-essentials or what they believe in those non-essentials. But that doesn't mean you leave the church then.
Right. Right.
If they're teaching whack stuff, then you leave the church.
Totally.
If the essentials are off, then you're then run.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of things that people get sideways on in church and leave.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think interesting. I kind of want to dive into here. Like, why do kind of this idea of why do we as people? Why is there a tendency for us as people to assume the worst about people? And so, I guess my question would be like, why is it sometimes easier to give, sometimes like even a stranger, sometimes you'll meet someone, you give a stranger like a benefit of the doubt, but the people that can be close to us again in our own, tribe or under our same umbrella, we will tend to doubt them.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, one, I think because we know them, and sometimes we do know their issues, or we do know sometimes their motives and things, so we can assume it that way. I think also assumptions can be a protective deal. Like if you can really hurt me, there's that protection thing that comes up of I'm going to assume whatever I need to assume in order to protect myself.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
Where if it's somebody else, it's not as close to my heart. It doesn't matter as much. I might give them the benefit of the doubt. Because again, I haven't known them for years, and I haven't seen them hurt me, and I haven't, they don't know how to push my buttons directly, whereas the people in my home do.
Right.
And but it's interesting. Even like within marriage, I see that all the time, where I've assumed something completely wrong.
Yeah.
This just happened the other night with Erin. Like I made an assumption that was completely wrong, and she's like, "That's not what I meant at all."
Right.
And so. But I did it kind of out of that thing of like, if I look at, the past 20 some years, I could make the assumption that that's what she meant.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And so I think it really is important for us always to assume the best.
Right.
And that's advice I give all the time to people. And I need to take my own advice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
I want to assume the best.
Yeah.
They didn't mean that. Maybe they meant this instead.
Yeah.
Let's assume that. So I want to go into a conversation, any kind of conversation, where I want to assume the best, and then I want to go directly to the person, and I want to communicate clearly. Hey, is this what you meant? I'm trying not to take it this way, but you've ghosted me for the past 3 weeks. Are you mad at me?
Yeah, totally. At what point do you feel like this, because I think sometimes, and you talked about this a little bit, that this will mask this under this idea of like discernment. At what point does discernment become just an assumption?
That's a hard one. Because, like I said at the very end of all of those things, that those can be real.
Totally.
But discernment, you have to go back to, I think, a lot of times just personal motives and being really honest with yourself of, am I over spiritualizing this? Am I truly discerning because a lot of people are like, well, I have the gift of discernment, and so I know these things.
Yeah.
You're like, well, okay. And you might, and that's great.
Yeah.
But are you discerning something like really from the Lord? You feel it in your spirit. It's a gift of yours, etc. And my motives are pure within it. If there is any impurity within there, then I think discernment can get completely off.
Totally.
And so if I'm struggling with any kind of offense, and then it's hard for me to have clear discernment on an issue.
Yeah.
For
sure.
So I think that's the kind of the crossover would be, man, I'm a bit offended, I'm kind of mad, but I'm discerning.
Yeah.
You might just be feeling,
right,
or you might just be assuming.
Sure. I mean, how do you maybe even personally, how do you distinguish between like in a moment, like I see a legitimate, how do you distinguish between like, hey, I think I'm seeing a legitimate red flag here versus like, yeah, maybe you've already made an assumption, you've already written up a story in your head.
Yeah. So personally, I don't really use the word discernment a lot. Just because, again, I feel like that word can get really weaponized in the church.
Yeah.
And so I'm not big on, I'm discerning right now in this moment. I think, though, just again, this comes from years of following the Lord and having that feeling or that invasive thought or whatever it might be.
Totally.
And seeing it followed up on and being like, okay, though, I was right. In that moment. Not I was right.
Sure.
But like I was right about this. So
moment,
but was discerning something there. So I think it's just years of that.
Yeah.
How do I, what was the second part of that question?
Yeah. Like, hey, like I see a legitimate red flag, or hey, I'm writing up a story in my head, or I've already
yeah. Writing up a story in my head. And that's the other thing too is, and I'm checking my motives within this.
Right.
Like, man, I'm feeling a certain thing.
Yeah.
But again, if I'm feeling that certain thing and I address the person, I'm addressing them assuming the best. This is one of the things that I do oftentimes. And, for those of you who've worked with me or worked for me, etc., maybe you've experienced this, but I always try to go into, because I can write up a story in my head.
Sure.
And I can get myself riled up. Like I can get mad. I can get but I'll, even in the midst of that, I have to go back to, okay, I want to assume the best. I want to assume that they're not doing this on purpose or whatever the case may be. Malicious intent, all that stuff. So I want to see how they are first. So in a confrontation, we're going to sit down and I'm going to ask, like, how are you?
Right.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Because this is something I'm seeing. And where is this coming from? As opposed to, I'm going to sit down and be like, you,
right.
Like you don't like me. You hate working for me. You don't, like you hate your job, or, et cetera. Right?
Yeah.
I want to kind of come from that other end of it.
Yeah.
What's funny is that I wish I did more of that at home. Aaron doesn't watch this, but like, I wish that I would be like, babe, are you okay? Like, I think that's better than like, why are you so moody?
Totally.
Or like to go to your husband and go like, are you stressed?
Yeah.
No, I'm fine. Well, you've snapped at me and the kids a couple of times, just wondering, like, oh, I have, like that goes way better than being, than like, you're being such a jerk right now.
Right. Totally.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Marriage advice.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I always think about like when in my meetings or stuff like that, I've gotten better just at asking questions.
Yeah, ask questions.
And even if I have the story in my head or an assumption, but sometimes instead of accusing and being like, hey, this is something I'm noticing. Can you help me understand? Am I seeing this wrong?
Yeah.
Like, am I like, this is what it appears like to me.
Yep.
But maybe I'm misunderstanding something, you know? And there's just such a difference in like how you approach. It's just like, I think what it comes down to is like a level of humility. Cause I think within the discernment kind of that movement or just even, that kind of whole like Wayne, there's a real easy tendency to go, well, because I have discernment, or because I know what's going on, or because I caught them, it's like, well, now I get to like lord it over them, or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like catch them, get them, I can get them, versus the humility to go, maybe I am wrong, maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah.
And even if I feel pretty strongly that I'm not,
Right.
still can I have the humility to approach them with the ability, because ultimately, really what your heart should be, and sometimes for me, I know it's not, ours, like, for that they would like repent and or like it, you know what I mean? It's not to get them, but it's like, you know, I want them to have like, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
Sure.
Most people don't have that though. If you're like, I'm gonna like,
if you come at them with accusations,
versus like, hey, you know, this didn't go the way I was expecting it to, or like whatever, this, you know, this expectation that what's going on,
right?
Can you help me understand? Even people, when they are caught in that moment, and they can go, oh, you know what, hey, I'm sorry.
Sure.
You know? And I think that's become so much more, and then you get to hear like, maybe, hey, I'm stressed at home, or something's going on, and you go, oh, you know, it's that leads with that like level of, you know, humility and empathy, versus like, because of the assumption, because sometimes it's not even the assumption of what they did, but I've made the assumption of why they did it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, you didn't do this thing, and it's because you don't respect me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes they didn't do the thing, but man, they like, my kid was up at 3 a.m. and I just had no sleep, and I'm off my game, and I'm like, oh. So my first assumption was right that you didn't do the thing, but my assumption of why you did it was totally wrong.
Exactly.
Right?
When
and
you assume motive.
Yeah. And so I think that's where like having that humility and just the like asking question and how you approach that practically can just really help out.
I mean, I think two things with that, just real quickly. I think in marriage, that is important to understand, that as you get to know your spouse. So I'm very ADD or ADHD or all the A's and all this stuff, right? So I'm all of it. So I ask questions and then I move on in my mind. So I don't listen to the answer.
Yeah.
And so then I ask the question again, like 2 minutes later. Aaron used to take that as, he doesn't care. How annoying. Why is he? And then she realized, oh, that's just in his, like, that's the way his mind works. So I don't need to take offense to that. So her assumption for years was kind of wrong. So now I can do that. She has much more grace for me. She still doesn't like it, and I understand, and I try not to do it. But it's like, oh, that's just the way they are.
Right.
You know?
It's not malicious.
It's not malicious.
Right.
It's like, you know, if you don't clean up after yourself, you should clean up after yourself. But like, if you don't clean up after yourself, because again, it's that like you're running late for work or whatever it is, it's not like you hate, the other person.
You don't care.
Right, you know, like you can't believe you left your dishes out or whatever it is. It's like, no, I was running late and I completely spaced, and I just, it's those types of things. And then the other thing I'd say too is that kind of on the other end of those that you like that are in authority over you. So maybe if you're a kid watching this, your parents or listening to this, or if you're like, your boss, etc. I think instead of assuming something about your position and assuming something about, where you stand in a company, ask. If your boss, or again, whoever's in authority over you has been a certain way towards you, like, again, it could be, man, he's had a rough month, or she's had a rough month, right? It could be, your assumptions are right that you're failing in the company, and he would have talked to you or she would have talked to you, but they've got so much other stuff that they're dealing with that you're kind of like a low priority right now. And you can find that out.
Yeah, totally.
So
it's good.
That seeking clarity is massive. Yeah, and then being able to clearly communicate is huge.
Yeah. I want to move to kind of a different kind of topic here. It's kind of the idea of when should a Christian actually confront somebody?
Yeah, I do.
So there's some moments you talked about in your message and different things like that. But I think a very easy question for someone to walk out of that sermon with is like, okay, well, how do I know when somebody else's sin or behavior is actually my responsibility to address?
Yeah. So this is what I hope didn't come out of that, is where everyone becomes sin police.
Sure.
You know, where we're always like, hey, you know, like,
or what do they call them? The comment. What are the people who always like in the comments and everyone and just like they're heresy hunters.
Yeah, heresy hunters.
You know, all that type of stuff.
That's not the case, right?
Right.
So it's a few things within that. One is that Jesus talks about instead of addressing the speck in somebody else's eye, deal with the plank in your own. Mm-hmm. So first and foremost, we always want to check ourselves.
Totally.
Right. And so if I'm checking myself, I don't have to be necessarily checked by somebody else, if that makes sense. Right. So I want to make sure that I'm dealing with the plank in my eye.
Yeah.
But if I have removed that plank and I see something that is a repetitive behavior in somebody's life that is sinful, that is a believer, that confesses, to believe in Jesus, etc., then there's a couple of things. One, if it's a sin against you, right? You want to go to them to seek clarification, because if it isn't like necessarily a sin against you, then what do I mean by that? So let me clarify. If and when you talk about like what's a sin against me, whatever it is, like in Matthew 18, Jesus says, you go to them. I quoted that verse, right? And you can say, hey, clearly communicate, listen, etc. This is what you've done.
Right.
And then there can be, I'm sorry, I was wrong, forgiveness, etc. Move on. If that doesn't work, then you go and you get somebody else as a witness.
Right.
It's almost like, like when you go to therapy, in a sense. You've got somebody else there that's like listening in, seeing the thing.
Yeah.
And then if that doesn't work, then you go to like church leadership, right? Cool. So like there's these layers that you deal with conflict in between each other if that has to do with a sin against somebody.
Right.
Now, if it's just somebody's sin issue, if it's a thing that I see that it's repetitive and that it's going to hurt, then then you deal with it. Then you go to them.
For sure.
You go to them humbly and you go to them with their best interests in mind, not yours. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's all like people are really quick to go, especially young men are quick to call each other out. Be like, hey,
especially
bro.
kind of newer to the faith.
Yeah, newer to the faith.
Yeah.
And they've already talked about it with their other buddy.
Yeah.
So they've already gossiped one thing, and so then they're coming to you and be like, hey, dude, we've noticed you still use foul language and like, okay, well, or whatever the case may be. And usually, sometimes it's not even a sin; it's just their own conviction that they're coming after somebody with. So you got to make sure is it your conviction or is it actually a sin issue? But the goal is, like Galatians 6 talks about, if somebody is caught in sin, then you restore them gently.
Yes. So
you handle it well. And the process is like restoration, not just calling out somebody's issue. John has a really interesting one in 1 John. No, is it 1 John 5. He says that there is a, let me see if I can pull it up. 1 John 5. Is that a cleaning? Is that a street cleaner?
Street
cleaner.
A street cleaner.
Basically, he says that there is a sin that leads to death, and there's a sin that doesn't lead to death. I'm going to pull this up because this one's interesting. In this whole idea of, what do we call each other out on, or do we not? And I do think it's a case by case basis.
Sure.
Like it isn't like. I would say in that particular thing, there isn't necessarily a clear process of how you do it, except for maybe if you piece it together. We'll take the log out of your eye. Is this a repetitive sin in somebody's life that's going to hurt them in the community?
Yeah.
And then deal with it. And from Galatians 6, do it gently and with an order to restore. But in John... 1 John, I got to go 5. Sorry, 1 John chapter 5. Give me just a moment. I think it's 1 John 5. If it's not, then I'm wasting our time right now. And everyone listening's like, wait a minute, what's he going to say?
Yeah.
Let me see. Okay, here we go. If you see a brother or sister commit a sin that does not lead to death, you should pray that God will give them life. So it's like you pray for them.
Right.
You start praying for them.
Yeah.
But he says, I refer to those whose sin does not lead to death. Now we go, doesn't all sin lead to death? But this is actually one of the most, this is a very controversial piece of scripture that theologians are radically divided on.
Yeah.
Not radically, but just pretty much, like there's a lot of different interpretations of this, right? Then, because he goes, there is a sin that leads to death. And I'm not saying that you should pray about that. All wrongdoing is sin, and there is sin that does not lead to death. So he's saying, okay, so if you see somebody in sin and doesn't lead to death, now the sin that leads to death for this particular passage, it's either like meaning repetitive sin that just you leave the faith,
right?
Sin that you're so entrenched in that that it's going to, like, again, just cause radical harm around you. And some of it is like, again, you'll leave the faith, blah, blah, blah. So it's going, okay, how deep is the sin? Is this going to, like, cause you to no longer follow Jesus? Or is it like, man, you're dabbling, you got to knock it off.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm going to pray for you.
Right.
But for instance, it would be like if I learned you were having an affair, like for me, that's a sin that leads to death. It's going to cause harm in marriage and all that other stuff. So I would approach you and be like, "What the frick, dude? You know, like I'm not gonna sit there and be like, I need to just pray for George, that he would stop lusting after women that aren't his wives. You know what I mean? Like, no, we're gonna talk about it.
Totally.
You know,
100%.
But maybe if I saw something else in, someone's life, I might just be like, I'm going to kick back and, pray for them and, and then if it continues and continues and continues, and I'm like, man, that's really become habitual, I should probably say something.
Right.
But I don't need to, like, jump on everything.
Totally. Yeah.
Especially, when I've got tons of logs in my eye,
For sure.
I don't know if
I'm not saying for sure that you have tons of logs in your eye.
You're like, bro, I know I've seen your logs, Jeff. And I'm saying, dude, you got some issues.
It's good. That's good. Okay, last kind of from our main discussion topic here, I would love to talk. So I feel like there's a really practical things. I know, again, just the size of people who are coming to Rhythm Church right now.
Yeah.
This is I know I can imagine there's people who walk out of here with this kind of thought process and maybe just question, right? Those kind of ideas. Does biblical unity mean every relationship needs to be restored? And so, you have people who maybe someone has sinned against them.
Yeah.
And, it's been very painful.
Yep.
Or they go, this isn't an assumption.
Right.
This is something that someone has done. Right now, I'm at young adults, and the amount of times I talk to young adults, and this person hurt me, and this person did this, and so there's there can be real offense there.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you hear a message like this about unity. We're tuned all to the same fork. Okay, we're supposed to be unified. How is that? Like, how can you pursue peace with someone without necessarily staying close to them? Is that a necessity to be in peace and to be in unity? That someone means we gotta be best friends. We gotta be buddies. We gotta be in the same group. Like, what does that look like?
So, okay, man, there's a lot of layers to that.
Sure.
We're called to love people, not to like them. So I don't have to like everybody.
Sure.
So just kind of on that thing, there's going to be personalities that I just don't like jive with. So I'm not going to hang with you right now. Right. We're not going to be besties. We are called to forgive everyone. Right.
100%.
So we don't want to live a life offended. So we forgive. We also don't have to continually be sinned against.
That's right.
So it's not like, okay, I forgive you, so now the relationship's going to be the same, because it isn't always. I mean, there are some things that some relationships that need to be restored, and redeemed, and some that you move on from, and that's just kind of the way that it is. Like, we're called to be at peace as far as it's concerned with us, if it's possible. He even says, if it's possible,
right.
As far as it's concerned with you, be at peace. He says in Romans, I put it in the message.
Yeah.
You be at peace. As far as it's concerned with you, with everyone. Now that just means, again, for me, like I don't want to hold on to offense.
Totally.
You know, like offense is and unforgiveness. Like this is it's an analogy that it's been used a lot. It's like drinking poison, expecting it to kill the other person.
Yeah.
No, dude, like it's gonna hurt you. So
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that we have to be besties with everyone.
Yeah.
It doesn't, like there are certain relationships that just aren't around any longer because of that, because of continual hurt or whatever the case may be. So I think there are some that you want to restore, and that's good. And I think there's some where you move past. I think the issue today is because we live in such a polarized culture that we are in, and we use a lot of we use a lot of therapy language. And I talked about Christian speak. We also use a lot of therapy language.
Yeah, totally.
When we've had no therapy.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
And
I saw this therapist say this on Instagram.
Exactly. Yeah. Or I read this book, you know, and this is so I need my boundaries and all of that. And I think that has actually become abused to where I think now we're tossing out relationships that you shouldn't toss out, that you have to figure a way forward on. Yeah. Even if there is disagreement doesn't need to mean division.
100%.
You know, like we can, you know, like to use like a sports analogy, you know, and I understand there's some things that are way more important than this, but like I can still think that Jordan is the greatest, and someone can say LeBron is, and I'd be like, you're dumb. But, and right now I just offended somebody who's listening to this podcast, right? But I still can be friends with you for sure. We can still hang out, you know, like we can disagree on different issues. Totally. And there are things that I want to, you know, like still be friends with people and still figure out like a way forward. Yeah. Because I think it's important to figure out a way forward. Now, again, if it's a radical, you know, disagreement and it is harmful and we've done the work and whatnot, then then we're just kind of done. Yeah. You know? Totally. So that's good. But again, I think everyone's too quick. Everyone's too quick to cancel. They're too quick to ghost, too quick to be like, I'm just, you know, I got to not be in their life right now because of, you know, like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know about that. That's good.
Well, so what's funny in this? So again, we talked about some things we want to change up with the podcast, change up some formats. We want to have more fun, or just like have some more. We'll just call them segments that I think would be kind of interesting for us to do. But here's one I think would be kind of fun to kind of even address some of these. So we're gonna call this hot or holy.
Okay, so hot or holy.
I'm gonna give you.
Okay, what's the two?
I know it's not like you can. I know. Hold on. I'm gonna clear. Let me set. Let me set the scene. Okay. So I'm gonna give you a statement. Okay. And you tell me whether you think it's hot or holy. Holy meaning it's good. Yeah. Like it's, you know, for us. Lord, hot, like not like hell hot. Like
hell hot. Like stay away.
Stay away. Not the gym. And I know some of these you'll want to give nuance, but this will be an overall. This will be a quick segment.
So I'm just going to say hot or holy.
You can give me like a little bit of a nuance, or a little bit of explanation as to why you said that. Okay. But yeah, these are just quick statements. All right. And kind of your reaction. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how long this segment sticks around. These are for like, this is like TikTok or Instagram type hits. Okay, ready?
Here we go. Yep.
So we have a few. If someone hurts you, so first statement, if someone hurts you, Matthew 18 says you always must confront them, hot or holy.
If they hurt you,
yeah.
Okay, so Matthew 18 is about sin,
right?
So did they hurt your feelings, or did they sin against you?
There you go.
So it could be either holy or hot.
Okay, all right.
So if they hurt your feelings and it's not a sin issue, and you go to them and confront them in a Matthew 18 way, that's kind of hot.
Yeah.
But if you, that sounded so weird saying that. We might need to change the vernacular here. But if
you say hot, like it's like a
I know. But if you go to them because like you want to make sure the relationship's okay, and you're like, hey, my feelings were hurt, let's talk about this. Then that's holy.
All right, cool. Okay. Number 2, protecting your peace means cutting people off.
Man, these are so nuanced, bro. I'd say Protecting your peace means cutting people off. I would say that's hot, because your peace ultimately comes from your connection with Jesus. And I think that there are people that can disturb that.
Sure.
So, but it would have to be like you're cutting them off because they radically mess with your like life.
Right.
And then that would be holy.
Yeah.
But the only time you see like somebody being kicked out of the church is when they're just in gross sin and they don't stop.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
If I don't have peace about something, that's God telling me no.
Dear Lord, George. If I don't have peace, no, that's not God telling you no. If you don't have peace. So that's hot.
Okay. Christians should never argue in public.
Ooh. Depends on what they're arguing about. I would say, I'd say hot, man. I think that we can argue in public. If we do it right, then we show the world how to have a good conversation.
That's good.
Okay.
Boom. All right. Number 5. Unity is more important than being right.
Okay. I could say holy if it's not a if it's not a essential theological position, then it's like, okay. Because, like a lot of times we can win the fight and lose the relationship.
Totally.
And so and it's not always about being right. But if it's a theological matter and issue, then you definitely want to make sure that that's, I'm not going to be unified with somebody who takes a wild stance on sexual promiscuity.
Right.
I'm going to be like, oh, your church okays thruples.
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, bonus, last one.
All right.
If someone says God told me, you can't argue with him.
Ooh, hot. You can argue with him. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
You better. I mean, not you better argue with him, but I think, man, you can, because what did God tell you? Does it line up with Scripture? And how did you hear? I think you can argue.
Yeah.
I do believe God tells people things.
Sure.
And so, but not you can always step in and be like, man, I think we need to talk about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very cool. Hotter, holy. One thing we also want to do too, we know in the past we've done Q&As, which are the whole episode Q&As, which we'll still do, but we want to create time at the end of each podcast where people can submit questions, and if time permits and it makes sense, we can jump into a question. We've actually redesigned the whole if I had more time webpage.
Great.
And so that's been redone. There's a section on there to ask questions that you can just submit really quickly. Also, we'll make sure to pin those in our YouTube, in our comment sections. That you can do that, or again, if you just want to add just in a YouTube comment, you just want to ask a question, that's totally fine. We'll be on the lookout for that. But yeah, we'll kind of go through our main discussion. We'll have a segment or two, and then jump into audience questions at the end. And so that will help. So yeah, if you have a question and we don't have to wait a month to get to the Q&As, still be able to do that. Obviously, since our first week back, we don't have any Q&As, but I want to let you guys know that. I want you guys to know to be on the lookout on the webpage for. Look out for a new webpage where you can ask those questions. We've redesigned that. I would really go encourage you to go look at that. All our old podcasts, you can drop a story, maybe an encouragement of how we don't have to wait for the year 2 podcast for you to say how much this podcast is encouraging you. If there's something you want to reach out to us, there's a spot on there for you to share a story, ask questions, and then just catch up on old podcasts from there as well too. So I wanted to let you guys know about that. Hopefully next week when we get to our podcast next week, we'll have some questions for you guys to be able to answer here in this segment.
Love it.
And then coming down here, kind of landing the plane. We'll end with just kind of one final takeaway from this week's message, and then you can jump right into a short tease for next week where we're going.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one takeaway. So one last takeaway from this. From the message,
what's the one thing you would hope that someone from the sermon and or the podcast today? What's the one thing you would hope that they can walk away with from this conversation, from the sermon, that can be practically applied to their life?
I mean, practically, I think it's just the thing of, handling, like not completely completely running your life off of assumption and going directly to the people that you need clarity from, and vice versa. If people come and need clarity, that you have a clarifying conversation, that you don't jump to offense. You see the humility of the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half tribe of Manasseh to go, far be it from, like, the Lord is God. Like, they don't bite back. They don't, like I said, the message, like they don't get they don't get offensive.
Yeah.
Or defensive, I should say. They don't get defensive. So, I think, that's what I would say is, man, don't work off assumption. Go to the people, get clarity, and find the way forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's good.
And then next week, it's almost like, like we started Joshua. Well, we start Joshua 23. I mean, I like that chapter has so much to it that I don't know if we can get through it in like 1 week,
sure,
or maybe even 2, because he does deal a lot with, like, okay, now the land is settled. These are the things that you keep up in your life in order to make sure that you continue to live in the promise of God. Mm-hmm. And as there's a couple, like Joshua 23 and 24 are 22 talks about it as far as to, like, follow the law, right? Stay holy type thing. But this is Joshua's charge as he knows he's about to die, right? Or as he's going. And remember, Joshua's a type and shadow of Christ.
Yeah.
And we see Jesus when he is leaving. Mm-hmm. He says, go make disciples, right? And teach them to obey everything I've commanded you, mm-hmm. right? Baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So it's not that, like, what do I say? How do I say this? Anyways, these are Joshua's last, like, this is Joshua's charge to the people, as he knows that he's not going to live forever. Like, he's going to die. Yeah. And what they need to kind of do to stay, like, serving the Lord. Mm-hmm. And man, there's a lot to it. Yeah. So I'll either breeze through it and do a few things, and we'll have more discussions on here, or we're going to go pretty deep into it and have even more discussions on here.
So good.
Yep.
Boom. Well, hey, if I had more time is back. Hey, do us a favor. If this episode blessed you, encouraged you, challenged you in any way, a couple things for us. Like the video, mm-hmm. and or wherever you're listening. Make sure you're subscribed. We want to get our subscribers up, get some people on. Mm-hmm. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. And then if it again to bless you, copy the link of the podcast, however you listen to it. Send it to somebody else and say, hey, this blessed me. I think it'll bless mm-hmm. you too. We have such high hopes and dreams and beliefs for this next season. This space is such a revelation of the impact that our creative team, but this podcast and all those different things that we just believe in the value of it. Yeah, 100%. And so we've put a lot of time. We're going to release a little video of kind of like the process of the studio, or our journey of us getting here. But I want you to know that you guys who are listening to this, who have been listening to it, whether you're from day one or mm-hmm. new on, are part of our journey, part of this space, and we believe in the power of what media is and how it's encouraging and discipling some of you guys online. Yep. And so that's why we're investing more into it. And
100%.
We're very grateful for that, and we just want to continue to see it grow. And see more and more people being impacted mm-hmm. by it. I got to tell you, man, this is literally our day. We've been in this office for like 3 hours. So it's like day one. But there are so many, as we get to kind of unveil our plans and all the things that we're dreaming for the space, mm-hmm. for this podcast, we believe it's going to really impact you, and we believe it's going to be awesome. The best is yet to come.
100%.
And we're really excited about that. And man, we should be a part of the journey. Like, subscribe, share it with somebody.
Are we still doing the drop of the word? If you
yeah. Man, what's our word, dude? The return.
Ooh.
Yeah. Keep that going.
Mm-hmm. Unity.
Unity.
Unity. Unity.
If you made it to the end, drop unity in the comments. Man, super excited for this. So great.
Stoked.
And we'll
Stoked
see you
back.
next Monday. We're back.
Let's
the podcast
let's
if I have
go.
more time. Peace.
Peace.